Now that we have the basics of how mechanotransduction in the cochlea works, let's think about what it takes to perceive sound. As we've already discussed, sounds are made up of complex mixtures of patterns of high and low frequencies. Telling apart these high and low frequencies is an essential part of analyzing a sound, but they arrive at the ear all mixed up in a combined one-dimensional sound pressure wave that plays out in time. Before we can perceive sound across the spectrum of different frequencies, our auditory system needs to be able to detect and analyze different frequencies individually. The key to the cochlea's ability to transduce sound waves at different frequencies has to do with variation in the mechanical properties of the basilar membrane. The mechanical properties of the basilar membrane vary along the length of the cochlea. At the base of the cochlea, the basilar membrane is thin and taut. As you move along the membrane towards the apex of the cochlea, the basilar membrane becomes increasingly broad and floppy. These different parts of the basilar membrane tend to vibrate differently based on the frequencies present in the sound. The broad and floppy parts vibrate better in response to low frequencies, and the thin, taut portions vibrate better in response to higher frequencies. It's a bit like the strings of a guitar or a piano. The low string on a guitar is thicker and looser, and it naturally vibrates at a lower frequency. The high string is thin and tight, and it naturally wants to vibrate at higher frequencies. The thickness or floppiness of a bit of basilar membrane determines how it will vibrate when hit by a sound wave, and the gradually varying mechanical properties of the basilar membrane allow it to naturally separate out sound into its constituent frequency components. Because frequency is arrayed across space in the cochlea, we call this a tonotopic map, and it's analogous to how position in visual space is arrayed across the retina in a retinotopic map. In humans, the membrane at the apex is tuned to the lowest frequencies we can hear, at about 20 Hz. The base of the membrane is tuned to the highest frequencies we can hear, around 20,000 Hz. Because the basilar membrane is tonotopically mapped based on its mechanical properties, the hair cells that sit on it are optimally sensitive to a particular frequency according to their position in the basilar membrane. This process is known as place coding. The frequency of an incoming sound wave is encoded by which neuron is active, not by the level of activity of that neuron. The activity level of a neuron is part of another code that indicates the intensity of a sound wave, or in other words, how loud something is. Loud sounds vibrate the basilar membrane more than soft sounds, which leads to increased activation of the hair cells. Thus, the frequency of a sound is encoded by which neurons are active, and the loudness of a sound is encoded by the level of activity of those neurons. Of course, most sounds we hear every day are complex. They contain multiple frequencies, each of which might be louder or softer. Amazingly, the hair cells of our inner ear can break the sound down into its different components, allowing us, for example, to differentiate between different musical pitches and between different musical instruments. If you've studied signal processing at all, you may recognize that this frequency-separating property of the cochlea is equivalent to a Fourier transform, which separates a signal into individual frequency components. While most artificial systems that we build for processing audio rely on electronics or software to separate signals into different frequency components, nature has developed an exquisitely beautiful mechanism for separating the signal into its components right at the point of transduction.